Hey, what's up, guys? I'm David DeMuzio.
And I'm Steve Cook.
Welcome to Hair Loss Hope, and today we are going to be reacting to a video put up by a popular YouTuber and YouTube channel, Baldcafe. Harry runs Baldcafe, and I think he is an important person within the hair loss community. And I came across this video that he made called 5 Reasons I Chose Not to Get a Hair Transplant. And this is an older video. It's from a year or two ago. So I don't know if this is exactly Harry's perspective currently, or if it just was at this time. I do want to make that disclaimer because I know my opinions about things and my perspective is constantly changing. So if you took something that I said 5 or 6 years ago in a video and you critiqued it now, this day, I might not even agree with what I said back then. So I know my perspective is constantly evolving. So I don't know if this is even Harry's perspective currently, that disclaimer, but I thought it would be cool to watch this video and put this into 5 different parts. So we'll look at every reason why Harry chose at this time, or in his mind, not to get a hair transplant, and just give some perspective on it from our perspective, which is obviously a very different perspective since we both chose to get hair transplants. So I thought this would be something fun to do. Let's go ahead and get started with Harry's first reason, which I'm pretty sure is cost. So here we go. And we'll watch the video and give some thoughts if we're watching, and then maybe give an entire perspective after watching the video of kind of speaking a little further about it. Here we go.
Now I'm here today to give you my 5 reasons why I chose not to get a hair transplant. So recently, I've had a lot of comments here on my YouTube channel, Baldcafe, guys saying, you're so stupid not to get a hair transplant. Why didn't you just get a hair transplant? You should get a hair transplant. And I responded, calmly. But I thought, hey, great idea for a little video. So here are my 5 reasons why I chose not to get that hair transplant. Now, reason number 1 is going to be the cost. We've seen before all over the internet and on my videos, the cost of a hair transplant ranges, anything from £2,000 up to £30,000. Now, let's take a nice little average number, I guess, £4,000 if I was going to pay that much, right? £4,000. But here I really feel like the saying, you get what you pay for, or buy nice or buy twice, really applies here to something like a hair transplant. If you go cheap, you run the risk of it looking awful. If you go
7,000
expensive,
USD, right?
you run the risk of wasting a lot of money. You see, with £4,000, you can do so much. You can take that £4,000 and invest it in yourself. You see, maybe you're into something, you want to get started in something new, maybe photography, maybe cinematography, maybe coding, right? Nowadays, you can head over to somewhere like Udemy, and for £4,000 on Udemy, you could have an absolute field day. You could pretty much study anything in depth, everything in depth. Really invest that money in yourself and give yourself some valuable skills that are going to last forever. We've seen it said time and time again, looks, they fade, right? Fine, your hair transplant looks good for 4 or 5 years, then you're going to need another one. Maybe this time you think £4,000 isn't enough. You're going to have to step up that cost again. So for me, cost was a big factor here. I'm going to be going back to the UK soon, and I want to turn Baldcafe into a business. So I'm going to need to invest money into Baldcafe. I want to come out with a lot of awesome products that I want to use, and I think you guys are going to love as well. I'm not just talking about anything. We've got the bald head butter, a beard oil, a shaving cream, maybe even some nice Baldcafe shaving accessories. You see, these things are actually useful, things that people can use. But in order to produce those products, I'm going to need an initial investment. And something like £2,000 is going to be enough to start that new business venture. Another thing I want to do, might surprise you, is get into poultry farming. Yes, that's right. Sustainable agriculture. And I can take the other £2,000 from that and start my poultry farming business. So for that money, for a hair transplant, I could start a business, I can invest it in myself, and I can have real longevity, things that really tangible mean something, just with the sacrifice of not getting that hair transplant and keeping the bald head. Reason number 2.
First, let's give, I think both Steve and I what we agree with when it comes to this, and then we'll give our perspective and what we might disagree with. So I think the first thing that I would agree somewhat with Harry on cost being a factor is that if you're really poor, then I don't think that, when I mean very poor, I mean you're having a hard time paying your bills, already, then I don't think that probably getting a hair transplant is the best use of your money. Unless you're somewhat at the point where emotionally, you're suicidal or something. Some of the people that write me, they're literally having like suicidal thoughts. And then at that point, I think if you're suicidal, then it's probably, not wasting your life and getting a hair transplant, no matter how much debt you need to go into, might be worth it for you if you're a good candidate for a hair transplant. But otherwise, if you're poor and having a hard time paying your bills, then I don't think that spending money on a hair transplant is probably the best use of your money, unless you are somewhat like suicidal kind of. What are your thoughts on that, Steve?
It really depends on the person. I don't want to sound kind of neutral here. It really depends on what it means, how much it means to you. You would find, if we did statistics, this is from industry to industry, but in the hair transplant, hair restoration industry, that includes non-surgical, you would be shocked on number one, how expensive these things are. And you would be shocked on number two is that the average patient is not from, the land of the rich. They're hardworking, I don't want to say blue collar, but I'd say middle income people that, they're not sitting in first class every trip with a bald head, reading the Wall Street Journal and seeing how much they made in the stock market last night. These guys and some girls are working really hard. It means a lot to them for them to keep up their image because, like I always say, it's an image-based society. So I would say that although in my world, because I'm a frugal person, hair transplants are pricey. It doesn't matter what the price is if it's done correctly.
So going on to the ways that I would sort of disagree based on my own perspective, and obviously that's the only perspective that any one of us has, is our own and our own experience. And so I would say that for me, the money that I've spent on hair transplants is the best money I think that I've ever spent in my life. I really can't think of anything else. And that's even well outside of me having a channel, YouTube channel about hair transplants and all that type of thing. But just in the difference that having hair really made to my quality of life. And now we're talking about, I was already a professional entertainer making six figures as a professional performer, having hit songs in the Philippines when I was losing my hair in my early 20s. So I was already, achieving various things, like various things that other people might find exciting. But I would say that the quality of my life improved so much. The quality of the girls that I was dating and my options in dating at that time, because I was single, improved so much that there was really almost no way to qualify with the money that I spent, which was in the tens of thousands of dollars that I spent on hair transplants, how much that improved my life. Now, another thing would be that people spend so much money on like much lesser things. So for instance, if you ask the average person, hey, if you snap your fingers, like how much are you willing to pay to look 5 years younger? And I think if you asked most 35 or 40-year-olds how much they'd be willing to pay to instantly look 5 to 10 years younger, most of them, it would be in the tens of thousands of dollars, if they had the money. And so, I mean, I went from the point of being a 25-year-old having people who were my age ask me, "Oh, how old are you? You're about 35 years old or so." And them guessing my age is 35 as a 25-year-old, to now being almost 40 years old and having 20-year-olds go, "Oh yeah, you're about the same age as me, right? You're like 25, 26." So it literally was, a 10 to 20 year kind of difference that it made in reversing the way that my aging was going. So looks wise. So I look at that and I go like, man, that for 4,000 pounds, that's crazy. Now I spent way more than 4,000 pounds, like closer to the $30,000 sort of range. So, what's that, like $17,000, 17,000 pounds or so. And I would say that that was completely worth it. Like if I had the option of having a brand new Honda Accord or having hair like I do now, there's no question, like hair like I do now, absolutely. Now, I was also fairly well off financially. Have never had any issues, thank God, as an adult paying any bills. And I've always had enough money to invest in the business opportunities that I want to. So I'm coming from a kind of a different place than Harry. And also, I've never had interest in poultry farming. So yeah, chickens, I just like to occasionally eat them, but I don't want to raise them. So any other thoughts?
You know, I got to give Harry credit even before we get into the second reason. I mean, he's got obviously a great personality, very charismatic. He's a very confident guy. But no offense to Harry. I mean, Harry, you know, to look 10 years younger and look like your younger brother in exchange for a chicken farm, I would choose the hair. I mean, you know, I understand where he's going with this. He's okay without the hair.
Yeah.
But, you know, Harry, you could look like your younger brother with hair if that's what you chose. So I would obviously opt to invest the money and have the hair restoration to appear younger, to frame my face, to bring out all my features. He's got a great beard. He's a good looking young guy. And why not have hair?
One last thing, just because I know, so my baby's mom and the love of my life is Chinese, and I've been on Harry's Instagram, and he is married to a beautiful, beautiful Chinese girl, and I think that he was already at the time of this video. So I think that that's also a big factor, right? Mating is one of the main interests that we have in our ability to mate, and that's a very human part of us, is that we need to find a mate. Most of us, we have that a very strong inner desire. And so Harry, if he'd already found his mate at that point, and she's gorgeous and, you know, looks like they have an awesome marriage, then that, which is already a huge factor, is going to sort of be taken out of the equation, you know, to some degree. So I feel like that could be part of a reason as well. And now I'm kind of, you know, just guessing that, right? I don't know that. So, all right, well, we're going to go on to the second video, which is, it looks like not reason 2 is there's not a cure. So if you're interested in watching that, check out video number 2 on us reacting to 5 reasons why I chose not to get a hair transplant.